So here's what I learned about the psychology of what women want. So I've read many books, like A Billion Wicked Thoughts, like The Evolution of Desire, like The Evolutionary Biology of Human Female Sexuality, Sperm Wars, many books on, what women want, what do women desire. I've, listened to hours and hours of Jordan Peterson and Hamza and, people like Dr. David Buss and even Ogie Ogas and Randy Thornhill, all to answer one question, which is, what do women want? What do women desire? What do women obsess over, right? And I've been researching this topic since I got into self-improvement for 3 years, over 3 years even, researching all to answer one question, which is, what do women want? And I think I found the answer. So this is basically, to summarize everything I've learned, I think this is it. This is the core of, what do women want? It's basically two sides of a coin, two sides of the same coin. So one side you have the alpha, the top man, the highest value mate, right? In terms of biology, of course. So like the man with like the best looks, the most status, the most money, right? The highest value man, the alpha male, right? So that's one side of the coin, and you got the other side, which is he loves and desires and is just obsessively devoted to one woman and doesn't care about any other woman except that woman. And that's like the ultimate fantasy for women, or like the ultimate obsession for women, right? Is an alpha male, the man at the top of the social hierarchy, the highest value man, who just obsesses and desires and just completely, head over heels loves this one heroine or one woman, right? And this is the story of female porn. This is the core. Basically, both men and women watch porn, just different types. So men watch, visual porn. So, it's focused on visual cues. It's focused on, what you see, women with big breasts and big butts, right? Small feet. And they have sex, right? And we know this, right? It's visual porn. It's focused on cues to fertility. But female porn, the porn that women watch is romance novels, and romance novels are they are a massive market. They make billions and billions of dollars every single year because they are literally just female porn. They are focused on what women desire and obsess over for hundreds of thousands of years. And every single romance novel has the same exact story, which is, you have this young, innocent, attractive young girl that other girls can relate to, the girls who are actually reading the story. And she goes through a terrible event, and she meets this man who's an alpha, right? What I mean by that is he's very dominant and he's very competent, and basically he's very successful. Alphas are always very high status. So think like kings and princes and doctors and billionaires and knights. And basically the entire story is the heroine tames the hero, and he just loves her and desires her very deeply, right? And they get, like at the end of the story, like the climax of the story is they get into a happy monogamous relationship. So basically it's just two sides of the same coin, the hero and the heroine. That's it. So the hero, he's basically the highest value mate, or the ideal mate, evolutionarily speaking, right? So he's very dominant and competent, if we break it down to the first principles. Women have to always balance between, dominance and competence, a dominant man and a competent man. Good genes and resources, if we think about it in terms of biology, right? So a dominant man, he's very muscular and fit, he's very confident, right? Even arrogant, and he's very flirty, right? And you have the competent man, who is very successful, very high status, right? So maybe he's like a millionaire, maybe he's like an entrepreneur or a businessman, right? Like a very wealthy, high status man, and you have the dominant, muscular, masculine, confident man, right? Now the hero or the alpha or the ideal man is very high in both. So he's very dominant and he's very competent. So he has both good genes and resources. He's very fit, muscular, proud, confident, but at the same time he's very competent and he has like the resources part. So he's like the jacked billionaire or like the very, very muscular but very wealthy, high status man. That's basically the hero. He's just very dominant and competent. If we look at any romance novel, that's always the hero. He's just very high in dominance and competence. He has both good genes and resources. So I break it down into just 4 core traits. So these are the 4 core traits to be the alpha, the highest value man, the hero in romance novels are looks, money, status, and personality. If we take like Christian Grey, for example, who's the hero in 50 Shades of Grey, he's very muscular and very fit, right? But at the same time, he's a billionaire. He's extremely wealthy, right? This is just a fantasy, of course. This is just a romance novel, but yeah, this is like women's deepest desires, right? He's very high status as well. He's a billionaire, and he has this personality of very confident, arrogant, mysterious even, but very proud, right? Very, very arrogant, right? But at the same time, he loves and adores Anastasia, who's the heroine, right? He deeply desires her, and we'll get to that point. But basically, every single hero in romance novel, whether it's Christian Grey or Mr. Darcy, the same thing. He's very tall and handsome and proud and confident and arrogant, but at the same time he's a wealthy nobleman, landowner in Pride and Prejudice, right? Same thing with Edward Cullen in Twilight. He's literally a vampire, so like very, very dominant. He has this body of a hot, high school teenager, but at the same time he lives 100 years. And this is why women desire vampires and werewolves, because they're literally alphas among alphas. They are extremely dominant and extremely competent at the same time. Vampires, they are very, very dominant. They suck blood, literally. But at the same time, they live for hundreds of years. And at the same time, they live for hundreds of years. And they're very, very wealthy. Vampires, right? Werewolves. They are the alphas of the pack, right? They are very dominant and competent, right? So basically the psychology of what women want is, like I said, an alpha who's very dominant and competent, who hopelessly falls in love with the heroine. That's it, right? So why do women want dominant and competent men, right? Dominant, like this is why we always see serial killers, right? Like the peak of dominance, they get tons of love letters from women, and even in the 80s and 90s, there were romance novels about rape fantasies, which were very popular, right? Even though that's like very, very immoral, of course. But yeah, women desire dominant men. Why is that? Because a man who's very dominant, basically who has like the good genes side, basically if we break down the 4 core traits, looks, money, status, and personality, he has looks and personality. This is like the good genes side. A man who is muscular and fit and very confident, he first of all gave a woman, if we think about this evolutionarily, right, so 100,000 years ago, right, he gave a woman the best sperm, the healthiest sperm, and he could protect her from, for example, like a tiger or a lion or any predators. And at the same time, he's physically fit to hunt and gain resources, right? So a man with good genes is very desirable, evolutionarily, right? So that's the dominance part, and we have tons of research that claims that women desire the scent of dominant men, the looks of dominant men, even the voice of dominant men. So the deep voices of dominant men. Just women desire dominant men. Now, what about competence, right? So this is, if we think about the four core traits, the money and status part. So why do women desire men with very high competence, with tons of money and status? Because this is resources. Like 100,000 years ago, right? Evolutionarily. If you had, let's say, like all of the food, right? You had like tons of cows and chickens and eggs and sheep. You had like all of the resources, right? And you were a very kind and loving man, right? Women would always want to be with you in the long term because you can provide and protect them in the long term, right? You can give them and their children, right, resources. You can give them food, you can give them a shelter, right? You can give them protection, right? So in the short term, women want dominant men with good genes, but in the long term, women want competent men with resources. And if you're a man and you have both dominance and good genes, and at the same time competence and money and status, right? So resources, you become the alpha male. You become the hero in every romance novel, right? You become the hero in real life, right? So you become the ideal mate for women, right? So that's, the hero part, the alpha male part. But what about the heroine? So basically, like we said, the core of every romance novel, the story of every romance novel is the alpha male who has both good genes, dominance, but also money, status, competence, and resources. But the heroine part is he needs to make her feel, he needs to make the woman, the heroine feel very desired and loved deeply, right? And this just makes perfect sense, right? This is women's deepest fantasy. This is what women have been desiring and obsessing over for hundreds of thousands of years, is a man with the best looks, the most money, the most status, who deeply loves and falls in love with them. And that's the personality part, that's the commitment part. Because if he deeply falls in love with a woman, that means she gets all his resources, she gets all his good genes, she gets all the benefits, right? She gets his sperm, she gets his protection, him providing for her, she gets everything. So a woman being loved and desired, not by any man, not because if it's a weak man, then it's just needy, right? It's just really unattractive. But if it's an alpha male, if it's the top man, then it's women's like ultimate fantasy. Yeah, that's it. That's really the psychology of what women want. It's just the alpha male with looks, money, status, and he has the personality of being very confident and, confident, mysterious, masculine, goal-focused, but at the same time deeply loves and desires one woman, which is the heroine, right? And if you look at any romance novel in the world, this is it. This is the core of what women want. This is the psychology of what women want, basically. And this is just fascinating, man. Like, this is just fascinating. Like, this explains so much. Like, why do you think when social media came out, when Instagram came out, for example, so many women, like so many, even young girls in high school started posting, pictures in swimsuits and provocative pictures in their bedrooms, and like millions and millions of young women started posting provocative pictures. It's because men desire women. Women desire being desired by men, basically. Why do makeup and fashion industries make billions and billions of dollars every single year? It's because women desire being desired and loved by men. And I think it's because it validates their value, or they get their confidence from that. They get their confidence from being loved and desired from high value men, right? And this makes perfect sense, evolutionarily speaking, because the ideal situation in terms of mating for a woman would be she has the alpha male, the man with the best looks, the most money, the most status, to deeply love and desire her, so to commit to her. And she gets basically all of the benefits out of him. So basically, yeah, what do women want? Women want a man who maximizes the four core traits. So looks, money, status, and personality. And I think really it's just fascinating, man. And yeah, like I said, there are two sides of the coin. So the alpha male, the top man, the man with the best looks, the most money, the most status. And you have this coin where he loves and deeply desires one woman who's the heroine. And that's like the personality part. So you have looks, money, status, which are like the alpha male part, and you have the personality part, which is he loves and desires one woman deeply, right? But doesn't care about any woman. He's reserved with any other woman, because that's what women want evolutionarily. Is he needs to commit everything to her. He can't be just kind to everyone. He can't be just nice to everyone, because he's just, you know, that means other women are robbing her from his value. She wants all of it to him, right? So yeah, that's basically it. What do women want psychologically? They want the alpha male, the top man, the man with the best looks, the most money, the most status, to deeply love and desire them. That's it. And if you look at any romance novel, which is basically female porn, this is the story of every single romance novel. All right? And as always, we're in this together, and we will make it.